Start recording. Share my screen. Very good. Cool. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us on this webinar. So I have here James Buckley with me. James is the Business Development Manager at Ringlead. Hey, James.
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks a lot for having me.
Good, good. Yeah, nice to have you here. So folks, today's webinar topic is something that's very relevant to me personally, and I'm guessing to a lot of other salespeople. It's talking about, how do you figure out which leads should you be spending more time on, or which ones are better left alone because they will be a time suck or wasting your time. So that's what we'll be talking about. It'll be very tactical, where we will cover things. Where we will talk about, how can you figure out which leads are not going to buy from you now, which are likely to buy from you now, and we'll also talk about a little bit about how to turn around a disengaged lead. I'm very interested in learning that from James, and then how do you break up with a lead, because sometimes it is needed. So with that being said, let's get started. James, one thing that'll be great is if you want to give a brief introduction about yourself and where you're working, what you guys do, that'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is James Buckley. You might know me more as #SayWhatSales. James Say What Sales Buckley. I started my hashtag about a year ago, and it really went pretty far. I was pretty surprised. But what I do is business development. That's my special, is SDRs. I love SDR roles. That is probably my favorite thing in the world, is the sales development process, what people react to and how they engage, why they respond to the things they respond to, and things like that I think are very interesting because they touch on a human nature note. So that's why I've always been good at connecting with people. I've always said that lots of people are going to talk to you, but very few people are going to connect with you. Those two things don't mean the same thing. And so when you're in business development, that's your job, is to connect with people. Most people think that they get a job in business development to sell something. And that's just not the case. You're building a relationship. You're providing value to people, building a community, creating a following. These types of things take time and consistency and practice and polish. So that's what I focus on, and that's what I do for Ringlead. Ringlead is the best data management platform that I've ever seen. Essentially, we focus on primary areas of sales and marketing alignment. So using data and data quality, we do things like put good quality data into Salesforce or any other CRM so that your salespeople have the accurate information. So duplicate removal and prevention in your CRM, lead generation with a great tool called Capture, and then data enrichment. So taking all of your old leads and getting all the latest and greatest contact info on those records so that they become bright and shiny new leads. And you can get all the new information that might have changed since the last time you spoke to those people. And then in the future on a roadmap, we're doing segmentation and lead routing as well. So more awesome stuff to come.
Awesome. No, that's great. One quick question, James. Are you guys enriching data only on Salesforce, or do you duplicate on Salesforce, or would it also work if someone's using HubSpot or marketing automation like Marketo or things like that?
So we are tech stack agnostic, and we do custom builds. So if you're a company out there that has thousands of, gold mine users or sugar CRM users, we want to have that conversation with you too, because there's really no limit to what you can do with good data, with lead generation. And with our tools, you can export to a CSV and push over to your CRM that way. So there's really not a limit per se. It's just an API limitation we have on different CRMs. But obviously for the right accounts, we would go in and just custom build those things. I mean, it's just like any other software industry today, where we want to know what you want and what's it worth to you. And if we know that, then we can build it for you. And that seems to be the way of the world today, is just finding out what people need and filling holes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cool. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm just going to put my headset on, James. I think there might be some kind of background
noise. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, it actually sounds a little better on my end. I don't know about the viewing audience. We'll find out.
Awesome. So
So I guess the first thing that we have on the agenda here, James, is, and I guess every salesperson wants to know is, are there any signs from a salesperson's perspective, whether it's the front line or the manager, that can predict that a sales not ready to buy from you? And so we have a few items here. So I'll let you go ahead with the first one.
Yeah.
Budget and, yeah, go ahead.
I think there's lots of signs that you could take from somebody that will tell you they're not going to buy from you. And I think some of that is like more nuanced, like tonality or body language on a call. That kind of stuff is important. But things that are more internal, think like you've got labeled here, pre-budget analysis comes to mind. These are people that say things to you like, let me see what I can do on the finance side because I don't really have a budget right now. You know, it's, if there's a budget conversation, if you've provided enough value and their reaction to you is, I need to find the money for this, you didn't provide enough value to them and they're not going to buy from you. So what people will often say, and what I've heard sales professionals all over the place say, is when you've done the job of meeting a need unlike any other person can, they will find the budget somewhere. And I found that to be very true. If you play your cards right, the pre-budget analysis doesn't really make a difference. But if they're pushing back saying, we don't have the budget, which is usually not so true, right? We've all seen where people have been like, we don't have the budget. And then 2 weeks later, they close with a competitor of yours, right? Yeah. Like that happens. And so when you see that, it's on you as a salesperson to recognize that you didn't pick up on that sign that they weren't going to buy because you were delivering enough for them to want to buy.
So let me ask you a question then, James. Recently, I was chatting with a customer, great discussion, and they mentioned that they have signed a multi-year deal with a potential competitor. They're like, look, we love this, but we are already committed our budget on this for this solution. What do you say there? Like, is that they're trying to brush you off, or are they being real, saying, it's true that we have allocated budget to a solution, we are tied to a contract? What do you say then?
So this can go a lot of different ways, but I feel like in most cases, it comes down to the seller's personality type. For me, I am the type of person that will say, oh, it's a shame I didn't get to you sooner, but let's stay connected. And I look forward to providing value to you and your network down the line. And then we'll connect on social and they'll see my content for a year. And I'll set a task for 9 months down the road to reach out and say, hey, I want to revisit the conversation again because I was too late last year, right? Like, you've got to realize that these are just people just like you. The other side of that is that really aggressive salesperson that's like, we'll buy out your contract. I just want your business. What's it going to take to get you to switch? Screw those guys. You know, like, I think it just depends on the type of person you are. And then in another case, there's this instance of like, well, what about a partnership? We don't want to steal your business away and you've already signed an agreement, but what can we do to provide value to one another in the meantime before we create a new opportunity? Nice. Okay. And that's another way that I'll do it. I mean, look, in the end, you want to do business with people. That doesn't always mean they become your customer. It means you do what's best for them.
Okay, cool. I guess the other thing that we have here is, following up without any answer. Yeah. What's the signal there?
So when you and I spoke about this, you were quick to be like, why 16? I don't understand why 16. We know for the last, I guess, 3 years or so, I've read so many things that point to this magic number of 16, right? 16 touches, they say, is the average amount of touches that it takes to generate a meaningful conversation. What I mean by that is like so many salespeople will have a 5-minute conversation with somebody. That conversation is, oh, hey, what's up? Is this a good time? Yeah, sure. I've got 5 minutes. All right, cool. I want to talk to you about my product and give you 3 value props, and maybe that'll be interesting to you. What do you think? And they're like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Reach out to me next week. And they hang up the call, and they're like, I got him. No, you didn't. You didn't get anything. You basically got brushed off, right? They took that 5 minutes, listened to your val prop, and then went to their next meeting, and you are a blip on the screen in their mind, right?
Got it.
But over time, you can build on that with more and more touches. So my 5-minute call when I introduce myself is just that. It's an introduction. Hey, what's going on? I know this is an unscheduled call. I want to get some time to introduce myself, tell you about me and my products. I'm sorry, who are you? And that's my window. My name's James Buckley. I think we follow each other. If we don't, we will soon, right? Like, let's absolutely have a connection here and build something instead of just like a back and forth real quick to get my number out. Like that's bullshit, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
But 16, if you've hit somebody 16 times and they haven't responded to you, you either suck, right? or you're probably just not in their radar right now. They're not even looking for what you're offering right now. It's not on their radar. Doesn't mean they're not interested. It means they're not ready to have that conversation yet, and they're not going to buy from you in that moment. Timing means so much in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. The next two items we have here are a little bit more extreme. One is, when you have been blocked from all digital communication, email, social, and then a cease and desist.
Yeah.
These
are my favorite.
Yeah.
So these are my favorite because they happen to me sometimes.
Okay. Wow.
So occasionally there are people in this world that think that their way is the only way, and they're unable to see outside of that way. My way is that I just want to connect with you, provide value, build a relationship, and maybe one day down the line we can have a conversation about what each other does and find a way to work together. That's always been how I want to do it. I want to connect and have a conversation and build a relationship. But some people don't want the relationship. They're more straightforward. They don't care who you are or what you do. They're just wired in that negative way. So when you reach out and say something like, hey, what's going on? I'd love to chat sometime. I see you're with this company and your bio says you were in the same hometown as I was at this time period. Maybe we can connect. Did you go through Hurricane Andrew? I was there. Let's chat about it. That's very hyper-personalized. But they're unable to connect with you because of something in their mind that says, I don't want to get sold. So they immediately block you because they don't know you personally. Right? At that point, you can basically write that person off as a buyer because their mentality is closed off. They're not a fan of meeting new people. You wonder sometimes how people like that get into decision-making positions, but they do every day because you don't have to be an extrovert to be successful.
Okay.
So because of that, you run into this blockade. Just move on. Don't try to hunt that person down, send them more emails, find another avenue, right? They blocked you. Just accept the fact that they're not going to buy anything from you because that's the me. And then, of course, the cease and desist. These are my favorite. So I was once served with a cease and desist. It was interesting because I had been reaching out to this company for months, and I had reached out to about 40 or 50 different people at the company. It was a large enterprise company. And then they walked in and served us with a cease and desist. And I was called back to the office. I got the cease and desist order. I've been served. And then we all kind of had a chuckle at it because it was like, no one ever asked me to stop reaching out. They were literally just ignoring all my touches, but I'm not going to stop. I'm pretty relentless. So I'm reaching out. And then randomly I get this cease and desist from this company. I'm like, man, I can't believe it. Like I never even got a request to stop reaching out, but I got a cease and desist. So then it was like 3 weeks later, three or 4 weeks later, they agreed and they signed up with us like through the website. It was the craziest thing.
What?
Yeah, not kidding. Like,
so is this a positive sign that if you get a cease and desist, that they might buy from you, or
it's not a positive sign. I don't think it's a positive sign. I think that's a stretch. But I will say that, just because somebody says no to you doesn't mean they're no longer your ICP. It just means they're not going to buy from you right now.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a no forever. People have to understand the difference between the word no and never talk to me again. Those two things.
Yeah. Cool. No, and we have something to talk about that in the final slide.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I guess we were talking about is, some of those signals are you pick up by talking to them or lack thereof. And then there's some other signals that you can figure out without even needing to talk to the customer yourself. So one of the things that we have seen is, when we from LinkedIn through Sales Navigator or just researching, if you see, if all of a sudden bunch of key employees start leaving the company, they certainly have bigger problems than buying your software. So it's good to leave them away for then. Would you agree with that?
So this is one of my things where I feel like there's something to be said for the fact that everybody's leaving, and it's hard to ignore that as a I'm not going to buy from you right now sign.
Yeah.
When there's a mass exodus, there's budget is being made available. So you're like, oh, it seems like maybe they might have some room for this. They're letting salespeople go. What if I sold them something AI related that can take the place of those salespeople? If you have the right product, maybe there's a small chance that you could reach out in this instance and be like, I noticed you guys are losing a lot of people. Maybe this will help you to stop the hemorrhaging or the bleeding. But 99.9% of the time, in my experience, when there's an exodus at a company, it's because the company culture has taken a dive.
Yeah.
It's because it's changed hands and the future is uncertain.
Yeah, I agree.
Has come into the market offering a better product for half the price, and they're struggling to stay afloat.
Yeah.
It's because a competitor has been poaching their employees, right? That happens a lot. So when you see those signs, that's usually a big red flag for me to be like, maybe I'll give those people some space. And see if they bounce back, and then we'll talk when they come back from it.
Cool. In the same theme, there are a couple other things that might be a red flag. One of them is through your discussions with them, when you find out the decision maker, whether it's a VP of sales, a head of IT, or whoever, worked at a competitor, and he or she just moved from there. They still might buy your software, but the chances of that person being loyal to the past company they worked at is pretty high.
So I think you and I have a difference of opinion on this. I don't know. So I love this conversation. So this part of it is interesting for me because I think in a lot of times when a person leaves a company, it depends on the way they left. If they left on good terms, you're absolutely right. They're probably super pumped about coming in and bringing this value to their new company and making a name for themselves. That's probably true. Yeah. But if they got fired or if they left on bad terms because the company culture wasn't supportive of their needs or, whatever their, magical reason in their mind was they were slighted in some way, I feel like you've got a little bit more of a chance of making a sale.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So what happened becomes the best conversation.
That is true. One thing that we also notice is companies engaging with a competitor on a public, like if you figure out from whatever monitoring you're doing, you see them getting pretty cozy with a competitor, connecting with them on LinkedIn, talking to them, engaging with their content, asking questions about them. That might be a red flag saying, you know what, I think that somehow they got connected, the competitor has won. That doesn't mean you give up, but that a lot of the times means it's a red flag. So
here's my how to work this to your advantage for you people out there that are watching this. Tell them about your competitors early and educate them about the people that they should look into. Encourage them to look at the competitors. I tell people all the time, it's about what works for you. So I was at Rainmaker last week, and Danny Meyer, the founder of Shake Shack, was one of the keynote speakers. And he said something that really made a lot of sense to me. When you're buying software or selling software, it's a lot like buying and selling shoes. What it looks like matters, but only to a degree. Does it fit my foot, and is it comfortable for a long period of time, are the primary concerns when you're buying a pair of shoes. That applies wholeheartedly to buying something that's going to be a part of your workflow, growth, and process. So if that's the case, then engaging with a competitor might actually work to your advantage. And being the only person out there that's saying, yeah, you should check them out. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about them, about us, about the space in general. I just want to be a resource for you. And if my product happens to be the best one, that's great. That has worked really well for me over the years because I'm not that person that's going to bash my competition, because what that tells your prospect is if I screw this person over, or if I back out of this contract, or if I decide not to renew next year, they could talk badly about me, and I don't want that.
No, absolutely.
Risk. So I tell people ahead of time really early, like, here's the top 3 players in the game. I encourage you to check out all of those competitors And please call me and let me know if you have any questions. I just want to be a resource for you. Plus, realize that some of those are not going to give you their product for free to try out, but I will.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. So moving on. So we talked about signals that you can glean off that gives you an indication that they're not going to buy from you. Time wastage, move on. What about signals that give you an indication that they're likely to buy? Something, music to salespeople's ears. So
Right.
there are a few things that listed here. I guess I'll start with the first one is pricing questions. What are your thoughts there, James?
Yeah, so this is one that kind of separates out into roles. So it's kind of a gray area for sales development reps, SDRs. For you SDRs out there, I'm sure that on the whole, and this may not be the case for everybody, but on the whole, most SDRs are told for the software world, don't talk about pricing if you don't have to.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because you want the person that's going to actually send the quote to talk about pricing. And you want it to fit in their budget needs in a lot of cases. Sometimes the price is the price and they're not going to get away from it, and that's just the name of the game. Other times it's like, look, this is our suggested pricing. It's not something that's set in stone. We'd rather earn your business and show you the return on investment so that we earn the right to ask you for that full payment a year from now when you've seen the return. Some companies do it that way. But anytime there's a question about pricing, that's usually the end of the line. You've shown them enough that they want to know now, all right, let's get down to brass tacks. How many times have you heard that, right? Lots of times. All right, let's talk numbers. What's this going to cost?
Yeah.
All right, what's your average sale look like? That's another way they ask for pricing, right? There's so many ways they do it. Do you have a pricing page? Can you set your pricing? I like that one because I feel like that one is so like hazy and fuzzy. Like, can you send me your pricing? What? Like, I'll just break it down for a little bracket in you, and then you could just choose the one you like. Like that's not going to work out, right? Because you're just going to look at that pricing and go, okay, and then go compare it to somebody else. You're not really looking at the value if I'm throwing you a bunch of numbers out there. So when you talk about price, you have to also talk about what somebody is getting for that price. And typically that's the line that they need to get pushed over. So when they say, what's this going to cost me? And you just throw a number out there, wait. Let them say, why? What do I get with that? Right? You can just throw a number out there and be like, but wait, let me tell you why.
Fair enough. The next one, very interesting. Again, it might be depending on the size of the company, getting the procurement team involved early.
So this is actually one I got from John Barrows. Shout out to John Barrows. He's probably one of the most valuable connections I have for sales advice. When you're an SDR, if you get procurement involved early, if you ask about the procurement process early, then you stand a great chance of cutting your sales cycle in half. So the reason for this is because, and a lot of this comes down to the salesperson. It really doesn't have much to do with the buyer, but the reason getting them involved early is crucial is because if they're a large organization that has a procurement department, you could talk to the CMO, the VP of sales, the president, the CEO, the VP, the operations director, and 3 or 4 AEs. And they could all be like, yes, we want to buy this product. You've been at this for 6 months. And then that person is like, well, let me introduce you to Jeff. He runs procurement. And now you're right back to square one. And Jeff is already pissed because you left him out of the conversation the whole time. That's negative, right? Because you're adding steps to your process there. And you're extending that sales cycle by not asking early, what does it look like when you guys buy something? What's that process go through? How does that work? What can I do to involve the right people in the buying process? It's a whole different decision-making process than there is a buying process. That's totally different.
Do you think it might backfire on you if you ask it too early? They're like, hold up, you haven't even proven the value of your solution and you're asking about procurement?
Timing is crucial to this, but I think if you ask if they have somebody that manages procurement, that's not the same as being like, are you ready to buy this? You know, those two things aren't the same. I think sometimes it's just an element of, I don't want to be blindsided by 3 people that are in your procurement department 6 months from now.
Fair enough. Okay.
So timing plays a factor.
Makes sense. One thing that we have seen, I have personally seen myself is, after you've done your initial discussions, you send a follow-up email or, with case studies and resources, and you see multiple engagement with emails or other forms of content, your webinars, they're downloading them, downloading white papers and things like that.
Yep.
That's a pretty obvious one, right?
It's a good one. I think people get confused. So if you're using a sales enablement platform like Cirrus Insight or SalesLoft or Outreach, then you'll notice that those types of platforms tell you how many times an email has been opened.
Yep.
The problem with that is that salespeople see that this email has been opened 47 times, and they're like, wow, that one person is super interested in my product. It's not true. What they've done is they've forwarded that on to their team, and it's being reviewed by several people at each company that you reach out to. So while that one person might have opened it 10 times, I assure you they didn't open it 47 times. But other people at the company have opened it. That's a good thing. That means more information is being shared. Your name is out there. That product is out there for that team to see.
Yep.
Those platforms, because of privacy reasons, can't tell you who's opening the email, right? But that magic number of 47 opens says, hey, this guy wasn't full of shit, and he really is interested in my product, and so is the team.
Yeah.
That's like 75% of what's on our mind after we talk to somebody. Was that legit?
Yeah.
Maybe.
yeah. And I think that's why the tools like Yesware and all these, a lot of these email tracking tools as add-ons.
Yeah, I always plug the email tracking thing because people will often start an email with, hey, did you get my last email? So I always respond back and I go, are you unable to see who's opening your emails? Yeah. That's my question to you. Like, stop, people, please stop sending emails that say that.
Fair enough. So this is an interesting one. I have a typo here, I just realized, but personal information shared. That's an interesting one. I've never heard that. What are your thoughts there, James?
So from a relationship perspective, it takes me some time to get people to trust me, right? And that's important if you want to make a sale. So I look at a sales cycle the same everywhere I go, right? It doesn't change. In there somewhere, there's a relationship that has to be formed. Trust has to be formed. When people start telling you about their kids, their cats, their dogs, their kids, that sports that they play, what they did with their weekend time, where they went last summer, their favorite vacation spot, personal things about them, when they start reaching out on Facebook themselves to connect with you, and this happened to me, when they come to visit your area and they make a point to stop in so you can meet their family.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Those types of things happen to me. And when that happens, you've got a lifelong customer, right? That is a relationship that they're not going to find with Joe Schmo at your competitor's office that just wants the sale.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So when personal information is shared, I find that to be a huge green flag of I'll buy anything you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of them, this is obviously true in my experience, is the lead is a referral from an existing customer. They have referred you. So those are those are the hottest leads, right?
They sure are. In a lot of ways, we struggle as salespeople to build credibility, especially if we're doing cold outreach.
Yeah.
Marketing teams out there that support your salespeople know that I love you. When marketing supports sales, it's very seldom that cold outreach is being done. So that's a very warm conversation when marketing says, hey, this person downloaded our white paper, filled out a form and asked this one specific question and joined this webinar that we put out. You're like, oh, clearly there are lots of ways that I can start a conversation with this person and they'll know who I am and who I'm with. But when you're doing cold outreach, it's the credibility that you lack.
Yep.
They don't have a white paper. They didn't fill out a form. They didn't sign up for a webinar. You're just a stranger calling them. So when it's a referral from an existing customer, that wall is broken down.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because you're already credible before you even speak.
Yep. No, that's awesome. I guess in the same theme, if there are any signals out there that a lead is likely to buy from an external perspective without even them telling you that, one of the things that we saw was, and we talked about it before, is them engaging with a competitor. Yep. That actually could be a pretty good signal. That means they're looking around, they're in market, they're shopping around. So perfect. You're at the timing is good. So that's one thing that we have seen. Would you agree with that?
I do. I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
if somebody's looking at a competitor, they're definitely in my ICP.
Yeah, yeah. I'd much rather talk to someone who's evaluating other competitors versus not having a clue about what we are trying to do. So
Yeah, totally.
There's a couple things that we have recently started looking at. Is some kind of company buzz or company events that are happening. One
Sure.
of them, and we all follow this, is if the company that you're talking to recently got funding. It's a pretty obvious one that they have money and they would have likely to have budget and try different things. That's one thing that I look at. What were you saying?
The funding one is interesting because I think that there's so many resources out there that will show you that information now.
Yeah.
Where it used to be something we had to call people and find out.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't have to find that stuff out via an employee at the company. We can look somewhere.
Crunchbase. Yeah.
Crunchbase, G2.
All of that.
There's a bazillion different places
Yep.
that you can look for. Google. You can Google it and it'll probably.
That's true. Yeah. Google Alert will tell you.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things we saw was, depending on which department you're selling into, if you see them growing that team or associated adjacent team, if they're hiring roles within that team, chances are they are growing. This is a priority for them.
If they're growing, then they need tools to support that growth.
That's it. So if Ringlead, you guys are selling to marketing operations people, if you see someone hiring for demand gen, marketing ops, similar to roles, that's a good signal.
That's right.
New executive hires. This is an interesting one. I know Craig Elias, who talks about shift or trigger-based selling. He says the number one source of trigger is if there is a new senior hire in a role. And I think there is some data that says every senior person hired in an enterprise makes $1 million worth of investment within the first 6 months of their role. So if you're selling into marketing, if you see a new CMO, there might be a very high chance and a correlation that they will try different tools and software in their staff.
So I would agree, but I think there's a few things at play there that you should also keep in mind. So sometimes a CEO is not quit, but been fired.
Yep.
The board has decided they're not good for the company.
Yep.
Sometimes two founders of an organization decide to put some distance between them and their product because they have had enough. They're over it. They don't know where to go with it. They're stressed out about it. And it's at this point, they just want to sell it and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of changes are maybe not so positive.
And
right?
I would agree. The founder changes not so much, but if you have a different VP or C-level executive, like who's not a founder being hired, that might be a pretty good signal.
It's a different mentality than what people just assume. I think it's an assumption to think that just because new executive hires are being hired, that's a good thing. Sometimes those new executive hires are out of desperation. Oh shit, our senior marketing officer just left. We need a new CMO stat.
True. That's actually a good point. So yeah, use your judgment, I guess, when looking at that. The one other thing that we saw was event attendance. So if you see the lead that you're talking to attending a relevant industry event, it gives you two things. A, they're going to learn new things. They might be in market researching vendors there, and they have money. Otherwise, they would not go to an event.
I was going to say that ties directly back to budget because we all know that going to these types of events are pricey.
Yep.
You know, sometimes upwards of $25,000 and $50,000 to go to some of the events when you really break it down. And then there's all the internal costs that you have. That just covers your ticket there, you know. And then you've got the hotel costs and the food costs and the team there. Man, it just adds up so fast.
Yep.
And when that happens, that you know, if there's 15 people at this event from this one company, that company just dropped a lot of cheddar to get all those people to that event.
Lead score should go up.
6 months later, they want to see the return on that event.
Absolutely.
That's when you reach out.
Yep.
Hey, how'd that return go? I bet you got a lot out of it. Let's connect.
Yep. Funny story. We actually we use this internally at LeadSift for a trigger event, you know, figuring out when people are attending an event. So we saw a big company went to go to Dreamforce. They had a big booth and everything. right a week after Dreamforce ended, I sent an email saying, hey, notice you were attending Dreamforce. What was the ROI of that event? And then I'm like, and then there was the pitch.
Yep.
There was a great response back. We closed them as a customer. 2 years
Nice.
and they're still there. But that's a good trigger, I think. The other thing that we also notice is if one of your lead has won an award, business award, and it basically gives you an indication that there's momentum, there's traction, go for it. It's not a dead, stagnant company. They're growing. They're winning
Yeah.
awards, especially in a business category or something like that. Those are good
Yeah.
signs to have.
Shout out to Jeremy Levier, SDR of the year from Lead IQ the other last year. I thought that was awesome.
That's awesome. Cool. So if Lead IQ is a prospect for your marketing ops tools, reach out to Lead IQ.
Yeah, reach out to Jeremy. I'll give you his cell phone.
Oh, wow. Cool. Moving on. So one of the things, now that we know what are signs that someone will buy or likely to buy or likely not to buy, how do you turn around a disengaged lead? This is something that we see all the time. You had good discussions and then it fizzled out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I love this part of the conversation because people ask me this a lot. And I always tell people, don't think that just because somebody's disengaged that they're not interested. It just means it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get back to you, or it's going to take some time for them to warm up to you to where they're ready to talk. Sometimes that doesn't go well because you reach out 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 times and they reach out like, dude, are you ever going to go away? Again, we're back to this mentality of salesperson. Like, which type are you? Type A, type B. I was told a story. My senior VP of sales, Jamie Muirhead, shout out to Jamie, reached out to somebody every Wednesday for 45 weeks. And on that 45th week, the guy reached back out for the first time and said, are you ever going to go away? And Jamie responded, not now. Take that disengagement as a challenge, and you'll find that it's a lot more fun. I look at it like a game. Okay, if I've sent you 4 emails and I've customized all of them and you're not responding to me, and I've also called you 3 times, and I've reached out on social, and I followed you on Twitter, and I like that picture of your dog on Instagram, and I followed you on Mighty Networks or whatever, right? Well, I found you every freaking where that I can, and you're not engaging with me. What can I do to get your attention?
Yeah,
that's the game for me. So I will do the craziest things, create the wildest videos, send them personally, send them little memes, right? Like, I'm not a machine, I'm a real boy, with like a little meme of Pinocchio. I'm a real boy, right? Like, it's supposed to be fun. And if you're not having fun with disengaged prospects, you're doing it wrong. You're getting frustrated, and that's only going to hurt your prospects.
Yeah.
Getting back to you.
So you talk about a few specific strategies that you have done. Do you want to highlight a little bit?
I do, yeah. So I love these. These are really good. I do these all the time. So snail mail is still popular. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't send things in the mail. It's a worthy investment to spend $6 and send some awesome swag to some prospect of yours in Chicago. If you're in Tennessee, I do this all the time. Send a written letter, a handwritten letter, right? When was the last time you received a handwritten letter? If you're a millennial, you've probably never received a handwritten letter.
Agreed.
If you're 35, I'll bet it's been 15 years since you've received a handwritten letter. You know, and if you're a decision maker at a large organization, chances are good you're over 45, just statistically speaking, and you've probably not received a handwritten letter since your grandmother was alive, right? That's just the nature of handwritten letters today. They're so few and far between. In fact, our penmanship has taken a huge dive. I write like a 7-year-old little boy. Like, it's messed up the way that we do it. Food is also my favorite. I do food a lot. So for those of you that know me, some people eat to live. I live to eat. It's a real issue. But when you send pizza to an entire sales development team for 10 people with a note that says like, hey, call me back when you get a chance, James, and you got your phone number there, they're going to call you, if for no other reason, to thank you for the pizza, right? And that's really half the battle, is getting somebody's attention. It's also worth noting that that's a 2,000-year-old instinct to sit down around a fire and eat with each other and share value and derive value from one another. So food is huge. I tell people all the time, if you can get away with like Uber Eats, just order like 5 pizzas and send them to their sales team. Like, I promise you at some point, someone will call you back and be like, did you send us pizza?
That's a hot take right there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You talk about calling out your persistence.
Oh yeah.
By that.
I am relentless. I openly admit the fact that you have to tell me to leave you alone if you want me to leave you alone. Like that has to happen. So like my emails sometimes, not every time, and most of my emails are handwritten and personalized, but my emails will often have subject lines like, I'm relentless, and 18 touches in 18 days. And I'm not going anywhere, and we can keep doing this dance if you like. Like those are emails that I actually send because people need to be prodded to get back to others and give them the time of day if they can. Like, I'm not asking you for a 30-minute call or a 15-minute call at every touch, because that's what most people do, and I'm not most people. But I am saying to you, hey man, I can be as persistent as I have to be. I'm literally paid. I am compensated to have conversations. Yeah. This is my job, to continue to press for you. Do you realize like your job is to manage all these different things?
Yeah.
And my job is just to keep emailing you? That's totally different, right? Because now you're like, all right, I should probably at least give this guy the time of day, because it's not going anywhere. That's abundantly clear.
That's awesome. Cool. And then finally, one of the things that we all talk about is, you know, sometimes you need to take a break, or you break up with a lead, and the dreaded breakup email, and there's lots on the internet talking about that. What's your take on that, James?
I don't break up. I refuse. I will not allow you to break up with me.
In a sales perspective, right? That's what you're talking about?
Okay, if you need to go there. No, I don't break up. I tell people that we should take a break, you know. I give them the breathing room that they need. I give them a week. I give them a month. Sometimes I give them 6 months. It's funny, right? Like, people don't realize that when somebody yells at you on the phone or sends you an email, stop emailing me, right? Like, they're just upset. They're just having a bad day. They don't know you. They don't have a relationship with you. It's a natural reaction for them because you're disrupting their routine or disrupting something that they've prioritized as important. So I give them that space. A lot of people will reach out to you, and I'm sure we've all seen this, where they'll respond and they'll say, James, thanks so much for your persistence. I just have so many projects right now. I can't take on anymore.
Yep.
That's not your cue to say, well, you should check out my stuff. Maybe it can help your projects. And, you know, that's not good. That's not what that person is looking for. They need their space. Give them 3 months and reach back out and spark the conversation again. Hey, last time we talked, you had too many projects. How's it going? How's your schedule going up? I'd love to chat sometime. Here's my calendar. No rush. I'm on your time, right? Absolutely. That's so much more refreshing for your prospect than, hey, screw all your priorities and put me first. Like, that's not
I remember a prospect called me out on this, and it was a great life lesson, where I followed up multiple times. And in my final email, I said, hey, based on our lack of activity, obviously this is not a fit for you. So this is my last time I'll reach out to you, and bye-bye. And I thought it was a good email, but he said something very interesting. He said, sorry, I couldn't get back to you earlier. But just FYI, customers do not buy based on your nurture cadence. Just because you have gone through your 10, 16, however many nurture sequences doesn't mean I am going to go, oh, now I'm ready to buy. This guy has finished his nurture. I'm going to talk to him.
Oh, man, I can't wait to get that 56th email.
Yes. So, no, that's great. I guess that covers our the content that we wanted to cover. There were a lot of very interesting and non-conventional thoughts and ideas, which I love. Hopefully it was very useful. So what I will do next, James, is see if there are any questions from the audience. So anyone in the audience that are still there, if you guys have any questions, feel free to post it in here. We'll try to get it answered. We'll give it a few minutes. While we wait for them, James, I had one question for you.
Yeah.
When we talked about which is a good sign that a customer is likely to buy, one thing that I think is a pretty good sign that someone likely will buy from you is if they ask for a reference. It's like, do you have a reference?
So I think asking for a reference is the same as saying, who do you currently work with? Right? That's one that I get a lot, is like, what are some of your bigger customers?
Social proof.
And I feel like that's the same as saying, do you have a reference, right? I look at websites as like an online resume for companies. So in a lot of ways, people try to make an association that's not there. So they want to hear who you're working with, and then you give them companies that are nothing like them. So the answer there is to be ready with knowing who your customer base is, so that when somebody says, hey, who are you working with? You can be like, well, like you, we work with these companies. They do the same thing you do, and we've seen growth at XYZ% based on this fact or the other, or this feature has helped them grow.
Yep.
That's a simpatico, right? Like, these people are the same. You need to stay ahead of the game like they are. Versus, oh, you're with, SunTrust Bank. Well, we work with Citrix. Who cares, right? Like, that's totally different.
Absolutely.
So asking for a reference can be somebody that they know personally,
yep.
but it's more effective to liken them to somebody that you're currently working with that's just like them.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Cool. I know we're a little bit over time. So as next steps, what's going to happen is we are recording this video, so we're going to post it on our website. Everyone that have signed up for it will get an email. They can watch it later and ask any questions. So James, for the folks, if they have to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yes, this is my favorite part of the whole thing. So you can reach out to me anytime. Find me on LinkedIn. You can search for the hashtag #SayWhatSales all in one. I'm impossible to miss. Or you can call me direct. I give my cell phone out to anyone and everyone, 305-632-6005. Or you can reach me on email, jbuckley@ringlead.com.
Awesome. That's great. Hopefully everyone got that. James's phone number, email, his LinkedIn, which has a hashtag. This is amazing. Thank you so much, James, for today's chat. And hopefully it was great for me personally, knowing some of the tips, because background is technical background. So I'm learning sales as I'm doing on the job. So there was some great insights for myself. So I'm pretty sure it'll be good for a lot of other SDRs and sales folks that are attending.
That's great.
Thank you once again, and have a great day.
All right. We'll see you soon.
See ya.